Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another really cool pinball repair video for you this evening. Now, if you did not see our first video on this, you're starting in the middle. Go back. You went too far. This is a Williams Phoenix pinball machine that we've been working on. And in the first video, we looked over what we're starting with. We checked out the play field that my brother Joe has already fixed up for us. It looks pretty good. We cleaned out the bottom. We looked at all the stuff we found in it. We cleaned out the top. We looked at all the stuff we found in there. We got a good video of where we're starting and what all condition everything is in. And then we started working on the power supply. We always do things from the beginning, right? So we worked our way up into the power supply. We haven't done the fuses yet on the bridge rectifiers, but we'll be doing that. But we are to the point now where the game turns on and all the general illumination lights come on, of course, but the MPU does not boot up. And the reason for that is because it has horrible, horrible battery damage on it. This is a Williams System 4. So we're to the point now where we need to take that sucker out and try to fix it. Or fix one just like it and put it in here. So we figured we'd film what we're going to go through, and you might be here and see the exciting moment that the thing comes back to life after all of these years. After they've hurt this baby with some batteries, we may be able to fix it and bring it back. So we'll see. So we're going to get a screwdriver and pop both of these boards out. Now this is the MPU and this is the driver board. So they're both connected together with this big huge connector in the middle. So typically you take both of them out at the same time. So I'll get a screwdriver, we'll pop both of those out, and we'll see what we're starting with. Got them out of the cabinet. This is the driver board, goes on the bottom. And so it drives all of this, the part in the middle here does all of the lamps. I believe that does too. I think up here does the switches. And then this does all of the solenoids like the coils and everything. And so you have these 3 PIA chips, which doesn't mean pain in the ass. It means peripheral interface adapter. But whenever they don't work, there are 2 types of PIAs. So maybe this one does the lights, this one does the switches, and this one does the solenoids. So the whole thing is, though, the MPU can't work unless these are working. So it's tricky to test the MPU without this driver board on it. So there's a special test chip that you can do that with. So we're going to do that here in a few. But before we do that, we have to actually get the MPU board cleaned up because it's in horrible shape. But this one here is actually, the driver board actually looks like it's in really good shape. I mentioned before on the other video, these burnt up resistors over here are really not that big of a deal. They put off a lot of heat and they look horrible, but they're probably still fine. We'll likely replace them though, just to clean it up a little bit. But you can also do a lot of mods to these. You can actually replace these transistors with certain ones so that you don't even need the resistors and all that. But, you know, we kind of do things back the way that it was done originally, unless it's just absolutely necessary. But one of the things, whoa, I about dropped you. One of the things that is absolutely necessary is this connector here on the top that connects the 2 boards together. This is called the 40-pin interboard connector. It's a 40-pin connector. It's the interboard connector, connects them together. And so it's the 40-pin interboard connector. So the female parts, which is this, are usually bad. So we're probably going to replace all those. Well, we're definitely going to replace all those because the games aren't reliable if you don't do that. But before we do all that, we have to fix the MPU board. So, same old story. Somebody left batteries in it too long. The batteries dribbled down all over this part of the board and ate all this stuff up. So at first glance, it looks really bad. But since I've been looking at it, it's not too bad. Yeah, it's ate up a bunch of crap. But I think we're going to be able to save it. Wouldn't that be cool if we were able to save it? I need to look and see which of these sockets we don't need. Some of these sockets you don't have to have if you combine some of the chips. So hopefully it'll be like these 2 we don't need. I'm hoping for a miracle here, people. I would like to keep these two, and maybe these two, and these two get rid of. I would like to combine these in such a way that I do not need these two. But we'll see if that happens. A lot of the stuff is socketed already, so I think this is the... let's see here. Is that the CPU? I can't read it. I think maybe. But some of these are Motorola chips. Motorola did a really interesting thing back in the day. They came up with all their own part numbers. So because they have all their own part numbers, on a lot of chips you can't tell what the hell they are, right? So you have to go look and figure out what they're supposed to be. But you can see with the light, look at that. Look at that, people. Ugh. Ugh, it's nasty. Now this is not acid damage, this is alkaline damage. So the way you fix alkaline damage is you put a little bit of acid on it and it neutralizes it out. Remember when they taught us that back in like the 5th grade or something? We finally get to use it after all these years. I wonder if they still even talk about that in school. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to remove this battery holder and chunk it in the trash. Okay? And then we're going to remove this chip and this chip. This one's going to make it easy for us. This chip, and since this one came off so easy, probably ought to do this chip, and this chip, and this chip. So I'm going to take this, and this off of the board. And I've got some of these, but I don't have the long ones like that. I might take this off the... Yeah, I've got to, because the connections under it will be screwed up. So I'm gonna get rid of the stuff on this part of the board so that I can get it nice and clean. And then I'm going to sand this down and try to get all of this freaking alkaline off of this and get it back down where it's nice and shiny. And then we're going to neutralize it with acid, which is vinegar, by the way. Vinegar is acid. We're going to neutralize it with acid because alkaline is a base. So if you've got a base problem, you put acid on it, it neutralizes it. We're going to neutralize it with acid and then clean it up, and then we're going to see which of our lines are broke that need a jumper or something. Hopefully none. Hopefully 0 will be messed up, but we'll check all the continuity and everything. And once we get that all right and we put everything back on, burn new ROMs and all that, hopefully she'll work. Now, why am I going to try to save this one? 1, because it'll make a cool video, and 2 because it's cheap, but 3 because the back is in really good shape. This doesn't matter. This is just on the ground trace. You don't even need that. But there is no damage to the back on anything significant. And on the front, it looks really bad. But if you look close, there's not really that many traces there. A lot of that stuff looks worse than it is. So I think it might work. It may clean up. So we'll see. It'd be cool to do that. So I'm going to remove this, some of these, this, and get it nice and flat again, and then we'll start working on it. Wish me luck. So I pulled off a bunch of stuff, so here's all of my trash. Look at all that. There was a little more, but that was all I could save. Pretty wild, folks. Pretty wild. I think we're going to be able to save it just fine, though. If you look, see how most of the traces are coming from the right over to the left? And then when I get over here, on the back, some of them continue on to here. Whoa. But on the back, most of them hop off over here. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, most of these traces on these last couple don't even need to be intact because their only purpose is to go to these sockets. So I looked on pinrepair.com, which is my favorite, right? Clay Harrell, he makes that site. And he tells you about how to do all this stuff. And so Clay, on his site, this is a System 4 board. Basically, on these boards, there is an unused socket right here, that position. So we had one there, 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 and there. 4 ROMs on the System 4. I believe it's a System 4. 3 or 4. Not really relevant right now. But the whole point is, these 2 ROMs, guess what? You can replace those 2 by adding one there. So I could not even use those and just use these 3. And these 3 look pretty good, wouldn't you say? I went ahead and took them off anyway, just to make sure that they look good. I bit it a little bit there. That's not good, but it'll be all right. It didn't break the trace or anything. So I'm going to put a socket there, and socket there, and that will be our ROMs. So these 2 sockets we won't need. And then I'm going to carefully check to see if the traces are still good, because you know one might go from like here to here to here to here to here and then to this chip, and you need this chip for some reason or whatever. So I'm going to check all of them just to see where they all go and what the deal is, right? This is the 5101 chip, which is that saves the audits and the game settings whenever the game's over. That's no problem to replace that. And it's in pretty good shape. It just needs cleaned up a little bit. That won't be any problem. These 3 won't be any problem. These 2 I have to clean up and then see if there's any traces broke. And then this chip over here, I don't even know what it was. It was so screwed up. Oh, wait a minute. I can see on the bottom it looks like. So I'll have to look that up and see what that even was. But we'll put a new one in with a socket if you even need it. If it only controls a couple of these 2 ROMs, I might not even need it, but we'll see. So it's not quite as bad as it looks, right? And these little capacitors, I think those are they called coupling capacitors, something like that? It's just so that the power rail on the chip is nice and solid. So if you look, there's one right next to each chip. So since I don't need these 2 chips anymore, I don't need those 2 capacitors anymore. So I'm not even going to put them back. There was one on this one, though. So if I have to put that back, I'll put that capacitor back. The connector, as you can see, wasn't actually affected. I took it off anyway just to make sure. But everything was cool. Everything was copacetic. So I'm going to clean it up, and we'll see what we can do. So I'm literally going to take sandpaper and sand all this crap down. That'll be our first step. So I'm going to try to get it to look as clean as I can with just the sandpaper and get all the old junk off of it. And then we'll see what's left. And that'll probably expose all of this copper so we can see where all the traces are and what kind of condition they're in. On the back, all came off pretty clean. I haven't completely cleaned it up yet, but I got everything off. The only one was I lost that pad right there. And that's a shame, but it doesn't connect anything on the back anyway. So, we're looking pretty good. So we'll clean it up, and I'll see if I've got those chips. I'll show you something about the chips. We had somebody send us a present a little bit ago, and that was really cool of them, so we'll talk about that for a few minutes. So while we're working on this, I figured I might mention we got in another package from our buddy Doug. And so Doug is a viewer who saw us on YouTube. He said he had a bunch of old IC chips that he wasn't, TTL chips that he wasn't ever going to use. And he wanted to know if he sent them to us, would we be willing to use them instead of throwing them away? And we told him we would. So he sent us an entire box of IC chips that are just what we use on all this old stuff. We're very, very happy. That's for, oh, by the way, I should explain why I always say that. The very, very happy thing. There was at the Olympics a few years ago, one of the Russian gentlemen, one of the figure skaters or something, was they saw him talking with the president of Russia, and you know the old thing is that the Russians are forced to do good at the Olympics or they get shot when they go home or whatever. And so the guy's talking to the president of Russia, and then he comes back over, or they're interviewing him later. Hey, we saw you talking with the president. What did you what do you think about that? And the guy said, I am very, very happy. Okay. So he had this chest full of all of these little IC chips. And he took them out of the chest and he threw them in a little bag and put them in the box. Now, before anybody says, oh, the legs got bent and all that, maybe a little bit, but we can straighten them out. And if we would have shipped them in the chest, it would have been even worse because they'd rattle all over the place. So this was a good way to do it without having tubes to put them in and stuff. So look at all these chips. So those are 7476s. We don't use them too much. 74 LS670. 74 251, 74 240, maybe some 74 04s as well. 8T97, that might be a RAM actually. I don't know what those are. More, we got some little transistors here, 7912 transistors. Oh, we use those. I'm gonna think about it. They just don't usually look like that. 74107, 74151, 152, 7485, 7416. I've used those many times. 74114 and 115. 7442s I've used on many boards. 74 LS193 and 194 we used many times. 74 LS08, you know, one of the most common chips ever, so we definitely can use them on all kinds of stuff. 74 11s, and on it goes. So he has sent us hundreds and hundreds of chips, and we are very grateful because we'll use these in boards and get them out working again on old PCBs that we repair. 7430 and 32, 74 289s. See if there's anything that hops out at me. 7404, probably the most common IC chip. 7400s also very common. 174, 175, 74 153s, 74 54s. 95s, 109s, 74 153, 139, 145. I don't even know what most of these are, but whenever I'm working on stuff, you know, you can usually track it down to a couple chips, and then I kind of research them and figure out, okay, well, this is supposed to be doing this, and blah blah blah. And then if we don't have the chip in, we have to order one, and that really slows us down because we have to wait. So all of these chips, most of them, they're not worth very much money. They're worth 30, 40 cents. But whenever you're talking about hundreds of them, and it's a big variety of them, you know, if I run into a game where I need a 7412 and I don't have one, well, I have to order it and then pay shipping and then wait, you know. There's no place local that sells this stuff anymore. There used to be a Radio Shack down the road, and there used to be a place in North Charlotte that's which really is like a 45-minute drive from here, so it's not very close. But there was a place in North Charlotte that had a lot of old components that they still had on the shelf from 30 years ago whenever people were working on stuff. They had these big drawers full of stuff, and capacitors and resistors and stuff, and you could go up there and find stuff if you wanted, but you know, I'd have to make a half-day trip of it now, and I don't even think that place is still doing that. So my whole point is, something like this, just having that chip sitting in a box, and then I end up needing a 7412, that will save me a ton of time, and probably $10, because I have to pay shipping and then buy a few of them too. 2102s, 253, LS86, 195, 7489. So as you can see, tons of stuff. And then there's a few bigger ones where he sent me the tray too. 74 LS 181, 188, 189. I don't think I used them too much. Well, the 188s are normal size. So I don't know what those are for, but we may end up using them. And then 7418. No, 74100. 74100. So I don't really know what those are either. So anyway, thank you, Doug. We appreciate it. We will put these to good use, we promise you. And he told me if I ever got where I couldn't use them, don't throw them away, give them to somebody. And I will. But we're going to use them for a long time. So we've got a chest in the back that we keep all of our ICs in. A couple of them popped out. With them all sorted and labeled and everything. So I'll pull these out and put them in those drawers in the chest in the back to where I can get to them when I need them. And we'll use them. Very cool. So after sanding, this is what we've got. You can see if you get on it too much, or it's too corroded, basically, it's not really you're doing it, but if you have to keep going to get some of the masking off that's still corroded, you'll start losing the copper. So this is copper, and you see all the holes in it. Some of these are just pits, but you can see down here it's completely worn away. That's just the ground trace, though. If you had that going on between the sockets, that would be a problem too. Sometimes you'll see little lines where the copper's completely gone. But we got it pretty cleaned up. Right. And then on the back, pretty cleaned up. Now, if you want to see how good of a job we did, if you'll go read the comments, you'll see all the armchair quarterbacks telling me where I screwed up. So you can judge me by that. So you may want to do yours better or worse. People ask me a lot, how come I didn't show like me sanding it? Because that's not important. It's like anybody can sand it. You can probably do it better than me, you know? And it's not really important specifics like the temperature of my soldering iron. People ask me about that. It's not important to me. I'm sure there's people out there that can tell you the perfect temperature. I can't, you know. As far as like what we use to sand it, well, we've got a lot of sandpaper laying around, so we were able to use 2 or 3 different types. It's not important. The thing that's important is get all the crap off of it. You may have a Dremel with like a wire wheel that can do it really well, or you might have some of this sandpaper, but you don't have this sandpaper. And I don't want to tell you, go spend money on this. Use what you got, as long as it's not too ridiculous. You know, don't do anything you'll regret. We got a little wire brush we use on some of it. Just use whatever you got. So far, we have spent on this $0. Haven't spent a freaking penny on it. We're about to spend a little bit on it, but so far nothing. So it doesn't. I'm not doing these videos to show you like all of the expertise behind it, or to show you the best possible way to do it. I'm just trying to show this to you to give you the guts and the heart to go ahead and try it. You know, if I can do it, you can do it. So if you want to learn how to solder, watch somebody's video who is an expert on soldering. I am not, but I did desolder all that and take it all off, and you can too. So we've got it all cleaned up. Remember, all this stuff didn't have anything there. So this chip we had to worry about. This chip we had to worry about. 1, 2, 3. Wait a minute. These two we don't have to worry about. 1, 2, 3 sockets we have to worry about. And this connector here. Look at this one. This was the worst part if you saw it before. So that came out pretty good. I'm happy with that. So now what we need to do is we need to, in some of these little pits like this, there may still be alkaline. So the batteries leak alkaline, not acid. It's the other way around. It's a base. So the batteries leak that crap all over everything. So the theory is that we didn't get it all out. That we got most of it out by just sanding off the all of the corrosion and a lot of the solder mask, right? But the theory is that there's still some here. So like if there's a little bit down in that pit there, it might rear its ugly head up and eventually go back and start eating it again, right? So we want to try to minimize the possibility of that happening. So what we're going to try to do is neutralize it. So this is the problem was a base. So what we're going to do is to, you know, if there's a little bit left in there that we couldn't get out or something, we're going to try to neutralize it by putting vinegar on it. So I've got a mixture of half vinegar, half water. I'm going to use an old toothbrush. I'm going to brush some vinegar on everything. Now you can't say you haven't seen me do it. This is what it looks like to brush vinegar on everything. Right? By the way, people, I know I'm being a smart ass about some of this, but it's just my nature. I don't mean anything by it. So we're going to brush vinegar on everything. And hopefully that will get down in there to where there's any alkaline left. Once we do that, we'll let it sit for a few minutes. And then I'm going to go rinse all the vinegar off, because if you don't, you'll end up with the same problem going the other way. Right? So we'll rinse all the vinegar off. But then you've got a wet board, and water might get up under here, or there might be a little water in there, right? So after you rinse it off, try not to get the water everywhere. Just get it, you know, over the part that you're working on. And once you get water on it, you've got a wet board, so you don't want that. So then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little alcohol on it, which will, alcohol evaporates quicker and it sucks up water, right? So we'll put a little bit of that on there, just pour it on basically, and it'll basically dry up, it'll wick up all the water and help it evaporate. And then we'll end up with a clean board. But what it's going to do is it's going to make all this look different. But I don't think we've got any continuity problems. I think everything's still there. I don't think it had ate through everything unless this is through, but I don't believe it is. It's just pitting. It didn't get all the way through it. And plus that's the ground run. So it goes all the way around the board. So most of that, if there's a way, the electricity has a will. So hopefully it'll be just fine. So after the vinegar and everything, you see it's reacted a little bit with the board there. Everything's cool now. After the alcohol, everything feels real dry. Not that it matters. So I put the pins back on. Now you may want to replace these if you're ordering stuff, and you've got to replace the female ones on the driver board. You have to, no choice. You have got to. The thing's always screwed up. These aren't always though. But if you're replacing if you're ordering them, you might as well order these too. The whole thing is though, it's kind of hard to find them that are real long like this. Usually they're 2/3 that size. So they still work and they still fit, but they don't go all the way through like these do. So these all look pretty good, so I'm leaving them. So I put the one back in. Everything's nice and clean. I'm going to put my 3 sockets, this socket, and this socket. I'm going to look on the schematics first, though, and make sure that this chip is necessary. I think it probably is, but I'm going to see what this chip does. So let's look at that real quick. I started putting stuff back in. We're putting a little 0.01 microfarad capacitors back in. And I added one to this one. It wasn't over there, but since we're using that socket, I guess it should have one. So we put those in, and then we put socket, 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 socket. Now, about half of you right now are going, oh, I hate those sockets. Oh, well, on yours, use whatever sockets you like. I like these sockets because from the top, whenever you're messing up these traces and everything like this to where they don't have the mask on them anymore, I like having these on there because I can look from the top and see the pin going into it and make sure it's not shorted to the trace running between the pin, you know. So half of the people hate these sockets, half of the people love these sockets. Nah, it is what it is, people. So I've got those in, and then I made an amazing discovery. Oh, we'll talk about this one here in a second. This is a revision 3, but Phoenix supposedly is a System 4 board. So this is a System 3 board but Phoenix is a System 4. But luckily, you can turn a System 3 into a System 4. Isn't that wonderful? So it's not even going to be that big of a deal. So I don't know. We'll look at the chips to see if it was even a Phoenix ROM set that was in there. I'll see if I can figure out how to do that. I guess that might tell me. 9007 and 9081. Let's see what we've got. Let me look at these. So I have 9081, so that was that correct chip. And 9007. So I had to write, these two are called the flipper ROMs. I know a lot of this stuff you're probably going, what in the world? But basically, see, these three proms were used to run the games. They're smaller, but you could replace them with this one, a bigger one, right? And these two are the flipper ROMs. So I think those are probably the right flipper ROMs. So it probably was a Phoenix. It just was running on a System 3 board, but we'll figure that out here shortly. Okay, so these are the schematics for a System 4. It's very similar. The main difference is there is this other socket here that isn't on this one. I don't know what all that stuff was, but it was unpopulated on this one. And then there's something a little different with the clock or something. We'll look into that. But what I need to find out is that chip over here is called IC25. So I was trying to figure out if we need it since we're not using these two sockets anymore. And we're not using that socket that's not even there on it. So on the schematics, here is IC25. And as you can see, an address line, A10, runs into part of it. And then I guess it must be the output on pin 0 of that 7442. And a couple things tie into this. Blah, 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 blah. And then this pin 1 runs down here to 22 and 21. Well, the ROM sockets that we are still using are 14, 17, and 20. So, you know, I'm not positive. You may be able to get away with not using it, but see, 14. I guess 14 gets its signal from 15. I may be able to delete it. I think I probably could, but you know what? I'm going to pop one in it anyway, just in case. So it's a 7402. Those are a dime a dozen, and we just got some, and that gentleman that sent us all of those nice chips, so we're going to be able to use one of his chips. I don't know if it'll do anything, but we'll pop it in. Why not? We already had the socket there. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in. I'm going to pop in the 5101 RAM chip that goes there. And then we're going to see about burning ROMs. But there's a way that you have to update a System 3 to a System 4. So I'm going to look into that. I think you have to add a wire or something. So I'm going to look into that to make sure that everything's cool. And make sure that Phoenix is a System 4. Well, it must be because the schematics in the manual are for a System 4. So we'll see how to turn it into a System 4, and I'm going to do all that by reading Clay's website, because he's already figured all this out. Why should I have to figure it out? So checking out Clay's site, basically you have to tell the board that there is no longer chips here and there's one here. So the way you do that, to upgrade a System 3 board to a System 4 board, is you add this little jumper here. So this 7442 chip, I believe that's IC15. Let me look in my manual to make sure. Yes, IC15. So IC15 is a 7442. And on a System 3 board, right there between pins 6 and 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there is a trace that comes through the board. And you cut it so that it's no longer connected. And then the little solder pad over here on the right you put a little jumper wire over to pin 1 on the 7442. Now, I know all of this is deep in the weeds, people. Go check out pinrepair.com and I explain it a little better. But basically what you're doing is you're connecting that first pin down here to, I think it's pin 20 of IC14. You're enabling that chip. So it's just the chip, just where the chip select works. So by doing that, you have told it that there's a chip here, and you've also upgraded this board to a System 4 board. So it's no longer a System 3. We fixed it. Okay, so I think everything's looking real clean. All of that's copacetic. So now we've got one more thing we have to do. There is a freaking, on these System 3 boards, which this is in design, you know, even though now it's jumpered to be a System 4 board. On the System 3 board, there was a little update that they did. This up here is the reset circuit. So the reset circuit is whenever the game comes on, you know, and it builds up the 5 volts power that we worked on the power supply to get all of these chips their 5 volts that they want. I believe the way it works is if the MPU or the CPU comes up it'll come up at random in the middle of a code, or something will be screwed up. So what it likes to do is it holds the reset pin low for a split second, literally a split of a second. At the very beginning, it waits till the voltage stabilizes, and then it goes high. So that's called the reset circuit. So the reset circuit holds it low and then makes it go high. So that's what all this up here is doing. So for whatever reason, they decided that the way they had designed this on a System 3 wasn't quite right, so they changed it a little bit. So on a System 4 board, it's a little different. So you have to take this cap out. It'll probably work like this, but it's not optimal. And on their last game, their last System 3 game, and all of the System 4 games, they changed all this. So you take this cap out, this resistor out, and this resistor out, and then we're going to put a new resistor, a 10K resistor from here to here. I don't know why, folks, but it's on pinrepair.com. They say it's a good idea. We're going to do it. It'll just take a second. So we took off the capacitor and the 2 resistors and added in the new resistor. So the reset update is done. The chip selection update is done. Bad chip is replaced. Bad chip is replaced. 3 sockets waiting for the ROMs. New capacitor, new capacitor, new capacitor. Everything's clean. Put this back on. All we need are ROMs. So it's ROM time, people. We're getting real close. All right, folks, so we're going to try to burn some ROMs here. Let me show you something really cool. Okay, now, you may not know, but basically Williams kind of abandoned the pinball market years ago and just shut up shop and started making slot machines. And it kind of left a sour taste in all the pinball people's mouths because Williams was awesome, right? But a solid thing they did for all of us people that like all this old crap is they released all of their software and allowed you to use it to fix your games and stuff. So the only reason, or one of the only reasons, that I can fix this 1978 game is because I've got a copy of the ROMs. Now, we probably could have got them somewhere else, but Williams actually put out the actual stuff, and they give you a little license agreement, and they say, hey, you can use it, go ahead, and blah, 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 blah. If you've got the game, hope this fixes it. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and try to burn some ROMs and see what we can get done. Got the proms in. I had to make them 2532s actually because I was out of, 2732s because I was out of 2716s. Put the little remote battery holder on it, and that's all we can do to it. So that's it, ready to go in the machine. But can we put it in the machine yet? Nope, because we had to fix the driver board. Remember, it needs the driver board to, the PIA chips on the driver board talk with the program, and without those, it will not run. It won't do anything. So we're going to work on the driver board. I'm going to be real quick on that part, though, because this video is getting really long. And I want to, by the end of the video, we need to see if this thing boots up, right? So let's look at the driver board real quick. Here is our driver board. So there's not a ton you have to do to these, but there are a few things. First, we're going to resolder every connector on it, all the way around the edge, because they get bad solder joints on the last pins, usually on each connector, because when you pull it off, it stresses the corner one. So say you pull it this way, this one gets bent a little bit. You can actually crack it from the board. So we're going to redo the solder on that. This female connector up here, these have to be replaced. If you don't replace these, you're going to have all kinds of problems because of the pins from the CPU board. They stick through this, and it just doesn't make good contact on old ones. So we're going to put brand new ones on this entire thing. Really no way around it. That's like the number one fix on these, really. Okay. These resistors, most of them are probably still fine. I believe they're 27 ohm. I believe, let me see what I've got up here on the, yeah, they're 27 ohm. If they're anywhere near that, they're probably fine. But these are the lights, and like the feature lights that turn on. Well, they normally work with a strobe pattern. If you turn off the, if the game is over, the lights don't strobe anymore. So what that does is it triples the amount of voltage or something like that going through these, and it starts frying them. So they're undersized. They're like 2 or 3 ohm. 2 or 3 watt resistors. So we're going to put 5 watt ones in it. So we're going to upgrade that. And then up here, there was an upgrade later on where if you replace these resistors right here with jumpers, you need to do that on like a System 7 game. This is a System 3. If you do that, it'll work in a System 3 as well, but it's not necessary in my opinion. It increases the voltage on the switches, so it sees the switches being closed a little easier, but sometimes, supposedly, whenever you do that, it can cause false switch closers. So, but some people recommend doing it. I'm not going to do it because it's extra work, and I don't really believe in, I don't think it helps it any on these earlier games, so I'm not going to do it. I am going to replace those resistors out. I'm going to resolder all this, and I'm going to put a new connector on the top. So let me do some of that. So we took the old one out. You see a little bit of corrosion even made it down onto that one pin. We're going to put new ones in all the way across. And where we get these is our buddy at Great Plains Electronics. He sells a lot of pinball parts and all kinds of connectors especially and stuff like that. So go check them out. So that's what we look like. Nice and clean. And these pop in there like so. Put new ones all the way down. All right, new connector, new resistors. I left them off the board a little bit so they can breathe. All of the old ones were actually still in spec, so you could have just left the old ones. Wouldn't have been any problem. Another thing that we did was we put, in the feature lights, we put all 47 volts instead of 44s like were original. We do that on all our machines, and it makes them use 40% less power. So all of the overheating problems and things like that, on like the back glass, for instance, and the plastics and under the inserts and the resistors, if you swap those bulbs out for 47s, most of that's no longer an issue. And then, of course, if you put LEDs in them, nothing's an issue either. I just don't like LEDs. I don't like the look of them very much. But to each his own. So we've got this about ready to go. The only thing I'm going to do before I put it back in, just because it's such a pain in the butt to take it back out, is I'm going to check all of these transistors and see if any of them are shorted or anything, just to make sure that we don't have anything that's obviously screwed up that I can tell before I put it back in. So I'll check all those with the diode test on the multimeter, and then we're ready to try it out and then hope it works. So we popped it back in, got the screws secured in it, got everything hooked back up, got the battery thing laying down there for now, got the power supply all hooked back up. So what do you think? Is it going to do anything? So when do you think was the last time this thing worked? Probably the 90s. When do you think, Joe?
Probably.
Joe agrees. Probably the 90s. So let's see if it'll do anything. Okay, I like that. Did you see what happened? These two LEDs came on and then went off, which is what it's supposed to do. So how come we don't have it doing anything? It's because the batteries died, remember? So whenever, now remember we don't have any displays up here on it. Oh, that strobe you're seeing on the camera, or you might be seeing it, you can't see that in real life, it's just the camera's catching it. But it's in audit mode. So there's two ways you can get out of audit mode. You can just work through all of the settings. So each time I hit this, it'll go through. Or you can do it the fun way. And so the fun way is you just turn it off and back on real quick. What do you think, Joe? Is it up?
Yep.
Oh yeah, this is such an old one. I guess it doesn't have a. So nothing in the track, I guess, flashes. I guess. Either nothing in the track flashes, or every light on the playfield's burnt out, or not working, or something. So let's see. So I'm adding a credit. No pinball. Joe, go grab us a pinball. Joey's going to go get us one. I probably should have put like a bad display on it just so we could at least read something. The 9 now is 9 credits. Now I don't know if the sound's working. Let me so that's the sound down. That's the sound up where you can at least hear it, but it's probably not working right, but we'll see. Pinball is coming. All right. Start button. I think she's back, but I don't think any of the playfield lights are working, I don't believe. Oh, there we go. They just don't work in the track mode. Shadow 3 came on up top. 4 might not be working, or the bulb's messed up or something. So we definitely got sound issues and we got light bulb issues, but the thing is playing. Ball number 2. Ball number 3. This is Williams' early. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of lights. The sound's trying to work. It's coming back to life like Christine, people. All right, that's the end of our game. So we're back in a track mode. All right, so we're getting there. Okay, so I'm going to. Oh, I guess we could go into test now. I went into the wrong test. Okay, we're in display test. Light test. There we go. There we go. What do you think, Joe? Yeah. We got to work on a couple light bulbs, but that'll just be bulbs. Okay. And then solenoids. Those all seem a little sluggish. All right. All right, we're back in the gameplay. All right, very cool. So maybe we got time to mess with the soundboard a little bit. What do you think? So I pulled out the soundboard. And the first thing I noticed, this is transistor Q1. And see how the legs are touching each other? Right? That's not good. Let's fix that. No more problem. So Q1, if you look in the schematics, is the reset line for the CPU, which means the CPU would constantly be resetting. So if it was constantly resetting, it would do something like go. So I'm going to pop this out of its socket, clean the legs, pop this out of its socket, clean the legs, pop the ROM out of its socket, clean the legs. It may need all new capacitors, but I don't have all these axial ones. So, but we'll see if that gets it up and running. So I'm gonna clean these. So this is the CPU. I believe it may have. I may be wrong about this, but it may have. It's in the 6802. It may have internal RAM, maybe. And then there's, this is the ROM, of course, the instruction codes, and this is the 6820, which is the peripheral interface adapter. So, nice clean little board. This switch, like we were talking about before, switches it between chimes and futuristic techno sounds. So I'll clean those 3 chips. I bent that straight, and we'll see if it gets rid of our tick, 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 tick. All right, so we put her back in. Let's try something here. Yeah, buddy. We have 1 sound. Wonder if it can do more than 1. We have 2 sounds. Now what, haters? 2 sounds. It seems to do 2 sounds really well. All right, so let's end the ball. Yeah, buddy, it's getting there. All right, so now we got to check out the displays, and I think we about got it. Okay, so everything still needs a little work. You know, we still got to do some bulbs. I haven't even replaced any of those bulbs yet, so we still got to do all that. We still got to work on the playfield a little bit, make sure all the switches work, make sure all the bulbs are right, and all of that. We got a little cosmetic stuff left to do, and of course we have to put the back glass back in it and all that. But on our next video, we're going to fix the displays. So we did a video on the firepower and a video on the tri-zone where we cobbled together enough displays out of these 3 Williams games to make displays for the firepower and displays for the tri-zone. And they looked great. If you go back and watch those videos, they looked fantastic. But now we're down to this poor Phoenix, and all it has is the main display. The daughter boards, none of them worked. The slave displays, none of them worked. So we had bought a new kit, Wolfpack Technologies Williams System 3 to 6 replacement display kit, and you have to put it together, but it's very inexpensive. It was like $110 or something like that for all new displays. And so this little tiny box has everything we need to have brand new LED displays. So we are going to do a whole separate video on that because it'll work on all of the Williams games, and you can check that out and see if you want to do that for your own system. But yeah, I think we did pretty good. It's coming right along. So check out our next video. We will do the displays. We'll finish everything up, get the back glass back in it, and see what we end up with. So let's see if we got some sounds going here. I don't think All right, folks, we like them loud, right? So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. I think it's pretty cool that we got the, we saved that old board, man. Look at that. We saved it. And we saved the power supply. And we saved the driver board. We still have to do the mod over here. I haven't forgot. But pretty good. Everything's up and running. So now we're going to start through, troubleshooting everything, fixing that switch, checking out every single switch, every single light bulb, every single solenoid, putting new pop bumper caps on it, etc., etc., etc. Lots of work, but I would say that it took us about 4 hours to do the CPU board and about an hour to do the driver board, plus what we spent on the power supply last time, which was probably an hour. And then the soundboard, 10 minutes. That was an easy one. So let us know what you think. Leave your comments below. Did you ever play this thing back in the day? Do you think it's worth us spending all this time on it? Is it worth the trouble to try to save this thing? I mean, Phoenix isn't even, whenever you say Phoenix, people go, oh, it's not a firepower. Oh, I thought you were going to say Flash there for a minute. It's not a Flash. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Yeah, Phoenix. I guess that's all right. So is it worth us taking the trouble to fix it? Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. And we will see you on the next video.